Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things Porsche. My name is Michael Barth. If you haven't been here before, if you have been here before, welcome. If you haven't been here before, welcome. This is, like I said, this is PorscheCooled Owner Stories, and we're up to number 27 today. We're up to PorscheCooled Owner Stories number 27. It feels like not that long ago when I was chatting to Nick from the UK on Owner Stories number 1. So we've had some great stories through this series. There's a lot more to come, actually. I've got a lot of people, and I keep saying there's a lot more people to get through, a lot more Porsche owners to get through from all parts of the world, Today's a good one, though, because I have John coming on the podcast, and John is from Norway. And John is basically coming on because, in a previous episode, I mentioned that, we're on the charts in Norway. I think we're in the top 5. It could have even been number 2 in Norway or number 1 in Norway. And I haven't had anyone from Norway on the show, on the podcast. So John reached out to me by DM and said, I'll be on the podcast. I think I can talk about my Porsche story. And I said, fantastic. And so it's taken us a little while, but we've managed to get it together. We've organized it. So John's going to connect with me very shortly by Zoom, and we're going to talk about his PorscheCooled owner story. So let me just get connected, and let's get John through Zoom from Norway talking about his Porsche 911. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Owner Stories. Like I said, I always forget these numbers, but we're up to number 27. And today we are joined by John, and John is from Norway. And I'm excited to talk to John, which I kind of said in the introduction, because John kind of reached out to me through Instagram when I mentioned that I think the PorscheCooled podcast was in the charts in Norway. I just checked this morning, actually. I think it's about number 20 today, 20 this week in Norway on the Apple automotive charts. So I'd like you to welcome John. Hi, John. How are you?
Hello, Michael. I'm good. And you?
Very well. Very well. So I guess being in Norway, it's probably snowing at the moment, right?
No, actually not. It's the winter is starting to let go now. We have had winter since October, so maybe a little bit different than you're used to in both Bahrain and Australia. But we have winter 6 months of the year.
Oh, okay.
So having a car hobby isn't ideal, but we manage. So I haven't been driving anything since early October, but now it's warm outside. The snow is melting, and maybe in a month's time we can start enjoying our cars again. So
fantastic.
Really look forward to it.
Fantastic. So your car's basically in storage at the moment. It's sort of just sitting there waiting for the better weather.
Yeah, it's under a cover for 6 months, and it's local, so I can go look at it and do small things. But it's not like having it at home in your garage. So
yeah, it's kind of nice when it's in your garage, isn't it? Where you can just go out and just check on it and make sure everything's okay.
It would been ideal, but I think for 6 months, I think it's easy to get tired of just looking at it. If you can see it each day, it's maybe it could become a problem that you're maybe tired of it before you're taking it out. So
maybe. All right, John. Let's get into the first question, or into the first thing that I always like to ask everyone that's been on Owner Stories. And we've had owners on here from so many different parts of the world. You're the first owner we've had from Norway. We're the first. Actually, we haven't had anyone from the Nordic countries at all. So you're the first owner. You've got a really good car. Everyone's going to know what it is by the title, but I want you to introduce it shortly. But before we get into that, let's go back to those first memories. The question I always like to know, because I always remember what my first memories were of the 911 and how long it took me before I could actually purchase one. So what are your memories of Porsche of 911? Did it start with a dream of owning a 911 or a Porsche, or did it just start from loving cars in general? How did you get into Porsche?
From the early start, it was just my love of cars, really. I always been around them. My father worked with cars, and I always followed him where he was, and you get always seeing cars around, and it's taking over your life and interest. So I was from the early start. I was like drawing cars, and when I could afford, I was starting buying car magazines in a very young age. And when you're starting reading car magazine in a young age, you always like see the Porsches. They always stand out, and I really think there's there where it started from the beginning. But my road to a Porsche is very long because I'm almost 40 years now, and that's a lot of car magazines to read in those years. So, but I think I was about 9 or 10 years old, and always after if either me or my sister had been like ill for a couple of weeks or something, and when we got better again, as an encouragement, our father always took us to the toy store.
Okay.
And when I think I was 10, and I had been sick. So after that, we were getting something nice. So we went to the toy store, and when I came inside, I just saw one single thing I wanted. I think it maybe was a little bit more expensive than my father had planned, but so we went home with a Ruby Stone Red 118 Burago 964.
Fantastic.
And that's my first Porsche.
So that's where it began. So you've got the Ruby Stone. Ruby Stone being one of my favorite colors, and also the color I use for PorscheCooled on Instagram. That's why I always have that sort of color, because of the Ruby Stone, which I think is such an iconic color in the 964, isn't it? It really, when you think of 964, you think of Ruby Stone. So
yeah, it's quite, for men it's quite Marmite, that color, but when you look at it on a 964, it just fit, like it's perfect.
Yeah, so, it really does. It really does. So you're looking at all the magazines, John. You're looking at all the magazines. You're seeing all these cars, 911s, and obviously a lot of other cars as well. You're getting the toys. You're getting inspired. We're going to jump way forward now. When you start, where you live in Norway. Were there a lot of 911s in the area where you live? Did you see a lot of them on the road? Were there neighbors that owned them, or friends, parents that owned them, or was it a rare occurrence?
I live in quite a small town in about an hour away from the capital, Oslo, and where I'm from, it's not been like a big Porsche community, and I think about it, but I don't remember almost seeing any Porsches local in my youth. So when I really saw Porsches live the first time, I think it was when we went for vacations, and the cars that really caught my attention then was, of course, the Porsches. And just it stands out like it was the sports car.
Yes.
Yeah, because the silhouette, the look, it's so unique. It's nothing like it on the road that looks like it, and with the special boxer sound. And I think it's always been there in my mind, but I've not really thought about it since my later years, I think, but it's always been there.
Okay, so a little bit like me. When I was younger, I lived in a country town in Australia, and there were really no nice cars. No one had nice cars. They had a local car called Holden's, and everyone had, everyday sort of cars, cheaper cars. It was very rare that you'd see a nice car. And for me, it was like this thing where I used to sit by the main freeway, the main road, on my bicycle, and I'd sit there on Sundays, and I've said this story before, and I'd watch all the cars go by. And that's how I got to see like exotic cars. Every now and again I might see a Lamborghini because it was the main road from the coast back to Sydney. So a lot of people had to go through our town to get back to Sydney. So it was always like, I remember as a kid, it was always exciting. So the influences are not always like in front of us, but with the passion still grows. So you're growing up, you start to get your first job. Yeah. What is the first car you decide that the first real car you think, okay, I'm going to buy this car? What was the car you first purchased?
The first car is not so worthy I mentioned, but I actually bought my first car when I was like 14, 15 years old. Okay. and we start to drive at 18 in Norway. So
okay.
I jumped the gun there. But when I was 19, I had started working as a car mechanic. So that was my job for many years. So the first like expensive car I got was in the year was 2002, and I bought a Nissan 200 SX S13. So
okay,
and that was back then. It was the dream car I was looking for some years, and finally I could afford one. So
I'm familiar with the shape, and I have even in Australia, I think they were quite sought after, those cars. There was quite a following for them, wasn't there? For the 200 SX, is it?
Yeah, in like Europe and many other countries, they call 200 SX. In the States, they are 240 SX. And in Australia and Asia, Japan, they called 180 SX. So
180 SX, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And quite an iconic car for its time, and starting to be a classic now. So.
Okay, so you had the Nissan. You've got like a sporty type car. It is a sports sort of car. It does have the driving dynamics that you're getting into. You're a mechanic. Are you still? I know you. Are you still a mechanic today, or you're not a mechanic anymore? Are you still working as a mechanic?
No, I worked in the Volkswagen system for almost 15 years.
Okay.
And then I got the opportunity to try out new grounds, and I changed my trade to being a salesman for Maguire's Norway.
Okay.
So I work at the professional level as a district manager. So I follow up customers and also teach them and support them with our products.
Oh, that's good. They're very good products, aren't they, Maguire's products? I used to use them. I used to use Maguire's products. I don't use them anymore. I somehow went into another range of. There's a place in Sydney that I go to. I went into another range of car products, which I think I spend a lot more money on, and I'm not sure whether it's worth it or not. You know what I mean? But I know Maguire's products are very good products. I know they're very, very popular in Australia. I mean, a lot of Australians use Maguire's products. They are very, very strong there, the market. Okay, so you're in the industry, so to speak. You worked for Volkswagen. You now work for Maguire's. So you've got a lot of contact with cars. So your first real car was that 200 SX. And I just mentioned to you before we started recording, there's a lot of cars on your Instagram. I can see a lot of cars there. And there's a lot of, and I'll say track focus cars. Because there's obviously a passion there that you have for being on the track, for driving, driving a car to its limit and getting the most out of a car, which comes into the car that you have today, which, you've bought, in my mind, one of the ultimate track cars. So you've got the 200 SX, John. What follows that? I noticed on your Instagram you had when did the GTR come in? Was the GTR your car, the R34?
No, not the R34. That was a good friend of mine, and he's also a big part of the Porsche influence. But after the Nissan, next on the line was Subaru Impreza GT.
Okay.
Yeah, and that got stolen. So that's
When
that wasn't with me as so long. But after that again, another Nissan 200 SX, and then came my Skyline. It was the R32 GTR.
R32 GTR. Okay.
Yeah, the
So
real Godzilla.
so that your first real track car? Is that the car that you first sort of started taking to the track? The
Not
GTR?
really, because I got a lot of like stick for it back in the time because I had such nice cars and I always focused on like the performance side of them with like the suspension, brakes, wheels, tires, engine mods. But I was so fond of my cars that I was a little bit afraid to really let go on track and use them.
Okay.
So my track experience and like passion, it came a little bit later. So because these cars was such a big like economical part for me, so I really couldn't afford like going off a track and having to repair the car. So instead, I just enjoyed them on the street and.
Okay.
But they looked very track orientated.
They do. They do. So you're buying cars here. I mean, the Nissan. There's a trend here that you like Nissan. You like the Nissan brand at that point in time of your life. You seem to like those track focused cars that they do, that the Japanese do. And
Yeah.
they're not in it. I mean, I know the GTRs, even the R30. They're not cheap cars. They're quite expensive cars. Probably even more so today. They probably even still kept their value.
Yeah.
So you've really committed to buying this car. What was it about the Nissan that attracted you? Because before we get into the Porsche, what was it about Nissan that you liked, about these cars that you liked?
I think first it was the thing about Nissans. I think it started with when the drift scene starting to appear
Okay.
in the early 2000s. And then we got this famous movies, Fast and Furious movies.
Yeah, influence.
So yeah, so I think my first car was pretty influence of Fast and Furious. And looking back at it, it's not my style now, but it was a part of the time then and the car scene. So. I'm not ashamed at all, but we all getting older and maturing. So, but it started there and just escalating. I think that's the name or word for my car hobby. I start with something and then it just escalates into bigger things.
Okay, so you're buying the Nissans. You've got the R30. You got the GTR, the R32.
Yeah,
it's quite an expensive car. You don't want to take it on the track. So you enjoyed that car for a few years? You owned it for a few years?
Almost 5 years, actually.
Okay, so you must have enjoyed it a lot to keep it for that long. It must have been a great car.
Yeah.
So what happens then? What makes you get out of the GTR? What follows the GTR?
Life happens. Yeah, I bought a house with my girlfriend back then. We got a child, my first son, and then follows 5 years without really having the opportunity to be a part of the car hobby with my own car. So in 2011, I sell the GTR, and then follows a lot of years just being a spectator. But that's a lot of years with spectating with my interest. So
okay, so this is 2011, John.
Yeah.
2011. So you start a family, you buy a house. I mean, I've heard this same story before with other Porsche owners, where everything goes on hold in a way until life, not normality, but things start to settle down, and then you start thinking about, okay, what is the next? Let's call it real car that we're going to buy. So what comes after the GTR then? Once everything family-wise is settled down and the kids have got a little bit older, what is the next car, the next real car that you start to look for and that you purchase?
My life then took another route. A couple of years later, we split up, and I then had each another week for myself. I had my son, 50%, and then I changed the work to Maguire's, and that allowed me to have a little more funds to getting into the car hobby again. So I had some cars, but the first real car I then bought me was Mitsubishi Evo. 6.5 Tommy Makinen edition. So
another special car. So another Japanese, very special, track focused, fast, enthusiast car. I'm going to call it. It's very enthusiast car. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And in Norway, that car really is like a legend because Norway and Scandinavia is really rally orientated.
I was going to say the rally history. Yeah.
And we have locals rallies here, and World Rally Championship are having a round in Sweden, just over the border where I live. So this car has been a part of my youth, and Tommy Makinen was the boss himself, winning the championship 4 years in a row with that exactly car. So one day owning one was a big dream of mine.
Okay. So that's a very special car. So what are the main what is the main memory of that car that you have today? Because you no longer own that car, correct? You would have sold that car?
Yeah, I sold it because I really thought that was a car I'm going to own for many years. But in the year that followed, a lot of things happened with my interest because I did as I usually do with the Evo, upgrades. It got suspension, got brakes, got tires, got some engine mods, and finally I took my car out on track.
Okay.
So my first really track experience was with the Evo, and after one day of track driving, I was hooked.
So you just said before you didn't want to take the GTR on the track because it was a bit special and you worried about it. So what made you change your mind? What was you thought it doesn't matter anymore? The money doesn't matter. It doesn't. I'll be covered. I've got the right insurance. What was it that made you change your mind and take your car on the track?
I didn't have the insurance, but I had got older, a little bit calmer, not so nervous about everything. And also a thing that helps is when you have the funds, you you tend to take some bigger chances. When you don't have the money for it, you use it as you can afford. So, but that one time on track with the Evo started quite big part of my life with track day driving. So, and that car was also starting to get really old back then, 15, 16 years. And I knew that car wouldn't keep up with me pushing it at track several times each summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you get into the track, driving on a track? It takes a bit of skill. It takes a bit of practice. Did you do a course to learn how to drive on the track, or did it just come naturally? You just did it with practice? How did you get the skills to be able to drive on the track?
I think it's always been in me somehow, because when I first started, it's all clicked together, and I could manage pretty good tempo out on track. But I always been playing car games on both PlayStation and Xbox, and you have all the hours.
The thing is, we laugh about that, right? I'm laughing about that, but it's known that the more hours you spend on PS4 or whatever it is, or PS5, or the car racing, the car driving games, you know, you do actually get the experience because you know the lines, you know the braking points. You know, it is just a game, but you do actually learn all those things, don't you? The correct line to go into a corner, the where to brake properly, the latest point you can brake, and all that. I mean, obviously it's not real life, but you do actually, you do start thinking about the track, don't you, from doing those games?
Yeah, and when you come there in real life, it all comes together. You can see why you had to brake there, why you have to turn in, and my 5 years without any hobby car of myself I had a lot of hours playing video games those years, and so it was a pretty fresh memory when I got my own car again and came out on track. So
okay, so you're taking the car to the track, you're taking the Evo to the track, you're enjoying that car. You said the car's getting a little bit old, and you think that you want to change it up. So what becomes your next track day car? What is the next car that you want to use on the street and the track? What do you buy next?
Then I took a really big jump, and I went and bought myself a brand new, back then, 17 model of BMW M2.
Okay, M2. Nice car.
Yeah.
So PDK or manual? Paddles or manual?
In my world, it's only one choice, and that's manual.
Manual.
Yeah, so quite a rare choice on a new M2, but for me, it wasn't any choice.
So 2017 M2, so that's the first M2. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they were talking about the M2, actually. I think it might have been Johnny Lieberman on Spike's Car Radio or Matt Farah's podcast. And they were saying that they think that the first M2 had the much better sound than the newer models. Like the sound of the first generation M2 was pretty special, especially in manual. And then they were talking about the M2 competition and the M2 competition CS or whatever it is, and how that M2 from 2017 is such a fantastic car. So how was the experience with the buying a brand new M2? So you bought a brand new car, you're taking it to the track. How was the experience with the M2 compared to the Evo?
The way that the M2 happened was that in the middle of the summer, me and a friend of mine went to Germany to the famous Nürburgring, Nordschleife, with his brand new M4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this is my friend that also had the R34 GTR Skyline back in the day, and he also had a quite special Porsche that we can come back to after that. So this trip with us two to the Nordschleife really affected me and was a big impact in what I'm going to do from here with my cars and my hobby. So coming back from that trip, the process started, and it ended up with buying a brand new M2. Then I got in 2017, and in May 17, I already took the first trip to the Nordschleife.
Okay.
I had the M2 on a local track day. First, the car wasn't even run in yet, so I run the car in on the track day.
Okay.
So I was quite eager to get down to the Nordschleife. The car already got some mods from the dealer with both suspension and exhaust and some carbon and everything. So taking out that brand new car and just straight to the track was one in a lifetime experience, I think. And coming down to Germany, the Nordschleife with my own car, and just getting out on track and taking in all of the experience was it's unbelievable. Then it's really set what I'm going to do for the next coming years.
Well, yeah, you're setting the scene now. I mean, all of us want to go on Nordschleife. All of us want to drive that track, safely as well. We want to drive it safely. I mean,
Yeah.
we see all the videos. We see all the videos online with all the incidents and the crashes and everything like that. There is a guy that I used to watch who has a really weird username on YouTube. I think it's -- or something. His username, and he's taking his GT3. I think it's a GT3 or GT3 RS, and he does track videos on Nordschleife, and it's just watching him. It's just fantastic to watch. You know what I mean? And I always watch it and thinking, I don't have the skill to drive that track. It just feels like one of those tracks where you have to have started somewhere else. Do you think that that's true, that your confidence by going to Nordschleife was because you had the track experience before?
Yeah, of course, because the Nordschleife isn't a place you want to start your track driving experience, because the circumstances there is of a much bigger degree than on a local safe track. You don't have any runoff zones. You don't have any insurance. It's on a local track, you can have 20, 30 cars around you, but on the Nordschleife, it's several hundred. So
yeah,
you really have to get to grips with what it's all about, and you have to follow the flow with keeping to the right. If you're slow, you have to use your mirrors very intense in the start, because the people that's coming from behind are very fast, and they're coming past.
yeah.
So it's a big step, but after a couple of trips, you get into it and you just enjoy it, and it gives you like a big adrenaline rush. And that place is not only the like track driving, but the whole place itself with the aura and the community. It's best place in Earth at cars, really.
I know. One day I'll go there. One day I'll go there. I mean, I think all of us want to go there at least one day. So you've got this M2. You've got a brand new M2. You take it to Nordschleife. You've obviously got the confidence on the track. How long was it before you, and I know what's coming next, and how long was it before you realized, okay, I love this M2, but it's just not enough. I need something better. How long was it before that thought came into your mind?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. Okay.
Yeah, because then I've been driving the M2 a lot. I've drove it for 30,000 kilometers, just summer driving and weekends for those years.
That's a lot.
And yeah, that's quite a lot. And I evolved it quite a lot with changing out the suspension several times, brake upgrades, brake cooling, Recaro pole position, Cup 2s, and the M2 started to be very potent on track, but it also was a little bit too easy to drive, and a little bit, it didn't have really its own character. So
how many track days did you do in that car, you think, at Nordschleife?
I just went there for the tourist driving. When the track's open for everyone, but I think I had about 6 or 7 trips down to the Nordschleife.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, you've got to that point, and I've had James from Melbourne, Porsche Platz, on the podcast Owner Stories way back, and he had the Cup cars, and he was driving a GT3, and then he bought the Cup car, the 996 or 997 Cup car, because basically he started out driving the car. Is that what happened to you? You've got the M2, your skill level is getting better, and you think, I need something, that's going to test me more than this one. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I wanted something more analog, without driving aids and nannies. I really was looking for a purer drive experience. And after owning the M2 for a couple of years from new, it didn't get worth anymore. So it just seemed like the right time to get into something that will keep its value for the years to come.
Okay, so we're in the BMW. You're in Germany.
Yeah.
On the Nordschleife, there's obviously lots of Porsches driving around. There would be GT3 RSs, GT2 RSs. There'd be cup cars. I'm guessing there'd be a lot of cars going by you. So when do you decide? Okay, I'm selling the M2 and I'm going to buy a Porsche. How did that come about, and what did you start looking for in the beginning?
I don't think I really was thinking about it, but me and my girlfriend back then, now my wife, we went out to her parents' cabin for a weekend. And as always, going to a cabin, I'm buying a couple of Porsche magazines to have with me, because
Of course,
it's the only place you have time to read car magazines these days.
Yeah.
And it was Total 911 magazine that had a GT3 and RS special.
Okay.
It was Saturday in the cabin. It just came up to me that I have to sell them too.
Okay.
But I really didn't know what to buy. So I had a look at the Norwegian car sales sites just to see what's out there. But one thing for sure, I didn't want a normal Porsche. I didn't want like a old one. I didn't want a Carrera or a Targa or something like. It had to be a GT product.
Okay.
And then I had to see what my funds were. So the search narrowed down to a 996 GT3.
Okay. So did you consider the 997 GT3, or it was due to the cost of the cars in Norway, or you preferred the GT3, the rawness of the GT3, the earlier version? What was it that made you go towards the 996?
If I could choose back then, I'm pretty sure I had gone for a 997 GT3 if I had the funds for it. But it's quite a difference in value in Norway back then. It's starting to get closer now.
Yes.
But my first GT3 driving experience was also my good friend with the Skyline and the BMW. Because in 2013, he bought almost new back then 997 Gen 2 GT3 RS 3.8.
Okay, very nice. Very, very nice.
And of course, this was for everyone a quite special car back then. The gray one with all the red details.
It's a perfect color as well. The perfect color.
Yeah,
it's probably that's my favorite color in that generation, I have to say. So you drove that car, John? You drove that car, and
I had the opportunity to drive it, and not having driven almost any Porsche until then, except one, but that was just a 928S back in the days. So that didn't make a big impact on me, but the GT3 RS really did so. It was until then and many years after the top car in my memory, and the Metzger engine revving to 9,000 almost, and brutal analog feeling, manual, stiff suspension, everything. That's because my choice for a GT3 later was I wanted that feeling again, but I hadn't the funds to go and buy myself a GT3 RS 997, so I had to find that same feeling, but in my price.
In your budget, budget. So you started looking for 996s. Were you looking for, I want to get onto the fact where you introduce your car to the listeners, but were you looking for the 0.1 GT3 996, or were you looking for a 0.2, or how did it come about? So maybe we just start, like, tell the listeners what you actually bought, and then we'll go into the background of it. So what did you end up finding, and what did you purchase?
The whole process ended up with a bright speed yellow 996 Gen 2 GT3 Clubsport.
Fantastic. Beautiful car. And everyone should go and have a look at John's Instagram. And I won't try to pronounce John's last name, but his Instagram is at JON, and it's at JONANERUD. So at JONANERUD. I'll put the link in this podcast, and it'll be in the link of the YouTube as well. So go and have a look at John's car. It's really fantastic. Speed yellow. Honestly, speed yellow in a 996 GT3 just looks perfect, John. It really does. It looks perfect. So how did you find the car? Was it local to where you lived?
Not really. The first 996 that caught my eye was a Garch red one.
Okay.
I found on this Norwegian car site, but a good friend of mine, also in the Porsche community, were living closer to where that car was, so he took a trip and take a look at it for me. But after looking over it, it wasn't really up to my standards, because I'm a bit picky on how the car is, and that comes from my work also with the car detailing and car care.
I have to say that one of the things I love detailing cars. I love detailing my own car and seeing it clean. And I've noticed on your Instagram, your car, even though you might take it on the track, it is always immaculately detailed. It's always looking perfect. So I did notice that.
That's a bit of a sickness. It's sometimes a big problem because it takes so much time.
Yes.
To keep it to that standard. And the first red one, it's going to be a long journey to get that car up to the standards I wanted. So I was a little bit bummed because I really wanted a GT3, and when that deal didn't come true, I just, as always, you take up your phone and have a look at the Facebook and see what comes up. And it's pretty special, but the first thing that came up on my screen on Facebook was this speed yellow GT3.
Okay. Beautiful.
For sale on the Norwegian Porsche Club Facebook site.
Okay.
And it was speed yellow, it was a GT3, it was a Gen 2, it was a Clubsport, and it looked immaculate. And right then I just know this car I have to have. It's it's this car or no car, I think. It's
So you contacted, it's on the Porsche Club site, did you say? It's on the Porsche Club site. Yeah. So then you contact the other Porsche Club member and you go and the car, you can go and view it yourself. It's close by where you can view it and get checks done on it, or it's further away?
I talked to the seller and back then owner for many hours because I still had the M2. And if I wanted to get hold of this GT3, I had to really find out how I'm going to make that switch fast. So after a lot of hours, we struck a deal and he took my M2 in exchange.
Oh, okay.
And,
that's good.
But he was a little bit nervous because of my car was well known in the community of being hard driven at track. So, but with my passion for keeping things neat, I took the car down to him a couple of hours from where I live, and when he saw the car, he knew that it's no big problem. The car was like new, even with its reputation of being track driven.
So it's a hard driven track car. So he took your car, it's in immaculate condition. So then you did a swap for extra cash for the GT3.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a direct swap.
Not a direct swap. Even though the GT3 back then was a 16-year-old car, the almost new M2, had fallen in value pretty much. So
yes, they have.
It wasn't back then I think the smartest exchange, because it cost me a lot of money. But I got into my dream car, and now as some years passed, the values have really settled. And
well, I think it was the right thing to do, because the thing is, there not many 996 GT3s come up for sale. I mean, maybe in the UK, I know in Australia, not very many. So not many come up for sale. A lot more people want the 0.2 than the 0.1, even though some of the purists like the 0.1 and the 996. As you know, some of people like the entry, the first year of the 996 GT3. We've all listened to that video on YouTube. I'm sure a lot of the listeners, and probably you have as well, John, where Andy Prutinger is talking about, AP's talking about the 996, and he says the 996.2 is a better car than the 0.1, even though he was involved in the development of the 0.2, which could be the reason why he's saying it. But the 0.2 is a better car. It is a more refined sort of car, and completely different to the 997, apparently, by all accounts, completely different. I've always liked the 996 GT3. I've spoken about it before, and I missed out on one years ago. And, it's still a car that I think about, because I would like to get a GT3, as a lot of people know. I do like the 997 better for me. But if a good 996.2 came up, I would not discard it. I would still really consider it. So this car that you bought, this car that you've taken ownership of, had it been modified in any way? Because I noticed the picture on your Instagram, the wing is not the standard wing, correct? So did that come like that from the guy that you purchased it from, or did you add that later?
The car that I found was in very good condition. It had not so many owners. Being imported from Germany a couple of years back, found its way through Norway, through Sweden, and each owner that have owned that car had really taken good care of it. So it's almost 45,000 kilometers.
Okay,
the mileage.
So low mileage, very low mileage.
Very low mileage for an old car.
Had it been used as a track car by the previous owners?
Yeah, but not so much. It's been enjoyed at some few track days, not being driven each weekend around. So, and a GT3 really can keep up with that kind of use.
So not driven as hard as you drove the M2.
No, not for 16 years.
That's good. Good choice.
Maybe in its early life, but that's almost, it's not easy to know now, but it's been very well kept. And the last owner and the seller that I bought it from used a couple of years to just putting it to perfect condition. He did everything that he needed to do with it. The 996 Metzgers and also the 997 has a little fault with coolant pipes.
Yes.
So the engine went out and they got welded and everything was upgraded. The engine went back in again with solid engine and gearbox mounts and some upgrades to it. So the car is not original, but it's very tastefully modified, I would say.
So what were the key modifications then? I mean, the coolant issue, the coolant line issue, as you said, is a very important one, isn't it, for people who are looking at buying a GT3, whether it be a 996 or a 997, because to do the coolant lines, and that issue happened to Steve. I don't know whether you've heard that podcast when Steve had his 997 GT3 and it was dumping coolant and he had to get the coolant lines pinned. It's an expensive fix because the engine has to be dropped. He did this clutch at the same time, so it works out to be quite a lot of money. So if you're buying a GT3, it's probably one of the first things you should ensure has been done, right? Because you have to add that extra money into the cost of your purchase. So what were the modifications that were done to the car?
everything with the engine. The engine also got IPD plenum.
Okay.
And bigger throttle body from the 997 GT3 RS 3.8.
Okay. Yes.
It have a fully tubular car graphic stainless steel exhaust with race cats.
Okay, nice.
And with a little tune, it puts out about 420 brake horsepower in a very light Gen 2 996. So
what is the factory horsepower of the 996.2 GT3?
381.
And yours brings out how much? Sorry, was it?
Around 420.
Okay, so quite a lot more. Okay.
Yeah. And the gearbox also got upgraded with the gear console from also the 997 GT3 RS with the cup cables.
Okay.
So it's a really nice short throw on the gear stick. And then we can move to the suspension.
So this was all, sorry, John, this was all done by the previous owner. This was all done by the previous owner. Okay.
Yeah, because he had the cars in small bits and just put back the things he wanted and did all the upgrades at one time just to make the perfect spec.
All right.
996 GT3.
And the suspension? What did he do to the suspension?
He changed all the suspension arm to cup ones, so they are adjustable, and the car is running almost 3 degrees negative camber all around.
Okay.
And everything's solid mounted and rose bushed, and it's adjustable like link rods and everything. So
okay.
And everything is held up by Erlin's road and track coilovers.
Beautiful.
So it's quite a direct driving experience with how the car is set up and with the suspension geometry.
So the Öhlins road and track, they're quite superior, aren't they? They're quite I always look at KW and Bilstein and whatever, but the Öhlins road and track are I think more expensive, aren't they? They're quite expensive for the whole system.
It's quite expensive, but I had just on the M2 I had KW Clubsport, and I think it's about the same level really. But it all depends on how they are spec'd to the car and how well they are set up on the actual car.
Right.
Because you have so many things you can adjust with bumper and rebound setting and everything and the springs. So it's all the base coilover kit is, I think it's about the same quality and everything, but it's all about how it's set up and
So the important thing is having someone in your area who knows how to set it up properly, who knows how to set it up for your driving style. So who do you have someone in Norway that has set your car? Like, did you get the suspension finally tuned and adjusted once you purchased the car? Did you get it fixed up to the way you like to drive and the feel that you want?
I haven't touched the setup at all. But this winter I changed out the wheels on the car. So I gone and bought myself a set of BBS E88s.
I saw those on your Instagram. They look very, very nice. They're very expensive. They're very expensive wheels, aren't they? Those wheels.
I don't want to talk about it.
I know. I was going to say that. When I saw that picture the other day, and I thought that's a very nice gift to yourself. The BBS E88. Yeah.
Buying such a perfect spec GT3, it's not a lot of things you want to mess with that will make the car more personal, or it's sometimes ending up being a not so good product all in all. So you really have to think well through your mods on a car like that, and the only thing I really could do with it was changing the wheels to something else. I love the original wheels also, but the only wheel you can put on a car like that, in my eyes, is the E88s. And
Okay, so since you've owned so that's the major modification you've done to the car. You've just literally changed the wheels because everything else was pretty much perfect.
yeah,
There's not really anything else you had to add. So let's talk about the wheels then. The 996.2 GT3 wheels is a really nice wheel. You know, it's a nice shaped wheel. I prefer the 0.2 wheel on the 996 than I do the 0.1 personally. But what was the downside of that wheel? Now that you've got the new BBS wheels, what was the downside of the factory wheel? The weight, or was it more than that?
No, the wheel is pretty light, but it's something about. For me, it's something about the appearance on the car and looking at the car so many times, and in the end, you want to change something to make it appear on in a different way. And always wanted these wheels since the BMW days also, finally having the chance to afford them, I go and bought myself the dream spec wheels. So I bought them completely new from BBS Motorsport and in a slightly custom spec. So because the original wheels, the original wheels really don't fill the arches the perfect way. Then you have to add spacers, and I really don't like adding spacers to a performance car.
Yeah, true.
So then I have to alter the spec on the 88s a little bit to really make them fill up the arches perfect.
I mean, they really do look fantastic. And I just have to mention as well, your number plate.
Yeah.
I just saw it. I've looked at your Instagram so many times, John, and your number plate is very, very cool. The Metzger number plate. Very, very cool.
That's my latest.
That's your latest? How did you find that number plate? I know we're still talking about. I want to still talk about the wheels first, though, because there's a couple of other things I want to talk about. So you get the iconic wheels, the wheels we all love, the BBS wheels. So then, what tires do you put on them? Because you have to change the tires. So are you getting stickier tires, or are you getting what tires did you end up buying for those wheels?
In my eyes, it's only one wheel that fits the GT3s, and that's Michelin Cup 2s. So I have Cup 2s on the original wheels, and the new E88s also get Cup 2s. So it's only Cup 2.
They really, those wheels though, they really do look great in the wheel arch, don't they? They really do suit the car. And when you see it in motion on the track, like the photo that you've got just recently on I can't pronounce the circuit, Valbonen's racing circuit. It's a great motion shot. So everyone should go and check out John's Instagram. What about the wing though? Tell me about the wing on the GT3. What wing is that? Because like I said before, it's not a stock wing. So what is that? What is that wing? Is that like a GT3 RS wing or?
Yeah. It's not stock for GT3, but the trunk lid on the GT3 and the GT3 RS is the same. So you can just change out the wing blade to the RS one in fully carbon. So and it's also adjustable, so it's set to the max angle.
Okay, so it's the GT3 RS Porsche wing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
I thought it was. It looks great. It looks really, really good. Okay, so sorry, go ahead.
And also the front bumper is also Cup MR bumper with vents, because in the 996.2 you don't have any vents original in the bumper, so that's a Cup one. And the lower lip is also a Cup lip that I have added. So.
Yeah, so it has more of an angle, doesn't it? The rubber has more of a... It's a different shape, isn't it? Yeah, it's a different shape.
Lower all around, so...
Okay, so that's what you've changed since you purchased it. You've changed the front, or it came like that from the previous owner?
The front he added, and the Cup lip I've put it on, so...
Okay.
Just my small touches.
Yeah, it's nice.
like the number plate.
Yeah, the number plate. How did you get that number plate? It must have don't tell me how much it cost you, but it must have cost you a fortune for that plate. Seriously. I can't believe this is what I find amazing, John. I can't believe that plate was still available, unless you purchased it from someone else at a very high price. I can't believe that plate was still available.
No, in Norway you can't. If someone else have the plate, you can't change it or sell it or buy it from one.
Okay.
No, so it's from a couple of years back. Personal plates in Norway was finally something you could have. So you have to search for exactly what you want. The number or name can only have 7 digits.
Okay.
And I have to search in for Metzger, because with Hans Metzger going away last year,
yes.
and his history and reputation in Porsche Motorsport, and with the engine in the GT3s being named after him, just think it was a nice fit for my car. So, and I've typed in Metzger and pushed go, and it was free.
It was free.
So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And it looks.
But it wasn't for free, but
no, it looks great on your GT3. It really does look great. I mean, like you said, very fitting, because Hans Metzger passed away just recently, last year. So yeah, no, very, very cool. Very, very cool. So what else are you planning? Is there anything else you're planning to add to your GT3? Is there anything else you'd like to tweak?
Not really. It's starting really to settle in on me with the spec and condition and everything. The inside also is exactly how I want it. I know you and Steve always doing this small projects with getting yeah, because you don't get your parts. You order them, but
yeah, I'm still waiting.
They never arrive.
It's
but,
funny. Steve and I were just talking about fire extinguishers. Now he wants to get another fire extinguisher and a fire extinguisher mount. But all these things, they seem to take time, and working out exactly how to do it, and the right size fire extinguisher that fits into the right size, Ren line mount, and which one you can buy and everything like that. So little things seem to take a long time to work out. I notice you've just got the factory fire extinguisher, right? Which is on the passenger side footwell.
Yeah, that's a good bonus of getting a factory Clubsport, because you get all the nice parts for free. So it got the Nomex buckets, it got the 6-point Schrott harnesses, it got fully caged, so it also got bars for the front.
Yes. So tell me about, sorry, John, tell me about the steering wheel. Was the steering wheel was on the car when you purchased it? Because obviously it's not the stock steering wheel. And did the previous owner fit that? And
the steering wheel was not on the car when I bought it, but it's something he sent with the car that he had bought from years back. So that's a 993 GT2 steering wheel. Also the same steering wheel that you find in the 996 Cup cars back then. So it's original Momo course Porsche Motorsport Alcantara deep dish steering wheel. So and that changing that steering wheel from the original one really changed the whole feel of driving it, because you get the steering wheel close up to you, and it's really a good fit.
So it sits closer to your chest, and it's and it's the same diameter as the previous wheel. Like, is it thicker or is it thinner?
It's about same diameter, but when I first collected the car in August in 19, only 5 days later I was on track the first time, and then the car had the original steering wheel with the airbag, and I really couldn't. I don't know if it was the steering wheel or the distance or the angle, or I didn't really get a good feel for the car. So when I went for the next track day, I had changed the wheel, and the car just fit like a glove to drive. It was the perfect angle. My hands were at the right place, and you felt perfect control of the car and feel for it.
So tell me, talking about the feel of the car, tell me about the track day experience in your 996.2 GT3 compared to the M2, completely different car. But how did it feel when you became comfortable with the GT3 on a track that you'd taken the M2 on as well? How was the difference? How big a difference was it?
It's two different worlds of track driving, because if you take the M2 first, it's a very capable car. It's new. It's got all the electric aids you need and want.
Can you turn all the aids off in the M2, or some of them are always on?
You can turn them completely off. Okay. But when you drive faster track, you always want some kind of system that's lying behind you to take care of it if you're really stepping over the limit. But the nice thing in the M2 was the Sport Plus mode, because then you had the auto blip when you downchanged into the corner. And of course, that's something you don't have on an old GT3. So then it was to start practicing the heel and toe.
It's not so easy. Have you mastered it? Have you mastered the heel and toe? It's not so easy, is it?
It's not so easy, but in that car, it's made for it. The pedals are just put in the right place, and after a couple of rounds, you really get into the flow. And that's the big thing with the GT3, is that it's giving you so much more back when driving it than the M2. The M2 was fast, it was fun, but it wasn't so difficult to make it all come together. The GT3, you really have to take care of it. You have to be the one that drives the car. It's no nannies. It's no help. If you go over the limits, you're off. And the car has such huge mechanical grip that this point of no return is on a big edge. So
have you been in any trouble so far since you've had the GT3 on the track? Have you had the situation where you've almost lost it, or everything's been okay so far?
Not really. You have a couple of slides here and there, but having driven cars for so many years, and a lot of the cars rear wheel drive, a little slip here and there doesn't put me out. So, and I think with the experience with the M2 also made a good training for going into a GT3, just to getting known to the track driving first, and then when the track driving was feeling okay, getting into a car that demands a lot of more attention of you when driving it.
So you wouldn't recommend to listeners who are listening, thinking, okay, I've listened to John's story and I'm going to go and buy a 996 and start doing track days. Would you say it's best? Would you say it's best to start further down the scale, like start on something like an M2 or a Boxster or something like that? Just get your skills together first.
I don't think if you haven't got any experience, I don't think you should take your first track day in an analog old GT3. But it's a car that you really feel as soon as you're out on track that this is what it's made for. That's the big difference of the GT3 and the M2.
Good point.
The M2 is a fast road car, but the GT3 is a road legal track car.
Yeah, good point actually. Someone sent me a message yesterday and said that they didn't agree with me that the new GT3. I said, I think I said, or Steve and I said that it was just too track focused, too motorsport. You know, where they just gone a little bit further along the line. You know what I mean? And someone reminded me that that's what the GT3 is all about. And, you know, I agree. The GT3 is about the track. But I think with the new GT3, and I don't know what your thoughts are about it, John, but I think with the new GT3s, Porsche has, you know, their models. You know what I mean? And the GT3 is here and the GT3 RS is here, etc. But now it feels like they've moved the GT3 even further away from all these other people. It's almost like they're trying to make it more exclusive, the GT cars. It's almost like they're trying to make it more, you know, enthusiast, more, you know, where you do actually take it to the track. I think that's what I was trying to say. It's not so much just for people driving around the street. It really has become, even this new generation, even more so, more just this is meant to be on the track.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the newer GT products are really stepping up the game. And but that's really not something I need to scratch, because my old GT3 really gives me everything I want in a car. And after having a couple of track days now in the car, I also found out that that's really not what the car is for me, because it's starting to age, the GT3, and it's in such great condition. So I'm not going to run this down on track the whole summer. I'm just going to take a track day now and then to enjoy it and really get the feel for what it's meant for. And the rest of the time, it's all about enjoying the car on early morning drives and drive outs, and just
fantastic.
Yeah, the recreation part of it.
Have you taken it to Germany?
No, because this thing happened in March last year.
But you plan to go to Nordschleife. You plan to take it on the track.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was really the big dream when buying my own GT3, because being down in Germany the last couple of years and looking at hundreds of GT3s and RSs.
Yeah, that's where you're going to notice the difference, John. That's where you're not going to be on the right-hand side. You're going to be the car coming through on the left-hand side now in the GT3.
we can only hope, but I think actually my in my M2 I got quite used to the car and the track in the later part of it, and I was having pretty nice fast laps. So going back to Germany in the GT3 now, I don't think I will surpass the M2 times in the first part, because a local track, pretty flat, is something in a GT3 to get to grips with fast. But coming down to the Nordschleife with 300 meters of elevation change, and it's so many corners, it's so many bumps and small parts of the track you really have to consider when you come to them. And so going down to Germany with the GT3, I just think that's going to be for pleasure and experience, not like lapping the fastest times or setting a new record. Like it's just going to be feeling that car where it was made. So
understandable. So now you've got the 996 GT3. You've had it since 2019, right? 2019 you purchased the car.
Correct.
So is there any other, is this the car you drive daily, or you have another car you drive daily? Obviously you don't drive this every day. This is still your special car, right?
Yeah. No, this is kept inside 6 months of the year. So, and I only drive it for weekends and trips and track days, and a little trip here and there in the summer. But we have a family car. It's a Skoda, and that's really does everything it should do as a family car, and half of my time I usually live in my work van, Mercedes Vito, so that's also what's so nice about the GT3. It's a big contrast to what I drive normally.
It's an occasion, isn't it? It's a special occasion. It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, I think any 911 really is a special occasion if you haven't driven one before and you get in one, or you haven't been in your car for a long time. I know with me, it feels like a special occasion, but a GT3 is a different level. So are there any other 911s you'd like to purchase? Is there anything else you'd like to add to your Porsche collection, or is the GT3 enough for the time being?
I really think I have found the car for me. I know I have said that before with different cars, but I think really this car is something I can have for many years and just enjoy and just take care of, and keeping it mint and in good nick, because it's the step up from the 996 to the next car on my list is just a huge leap, because then we're going back to the Gen 2 997 GT3 RS 3.8.
Yeah, which are getting more and more expensive.
Yeah, and that's soon the double price and value of my car, and I don't really think it's worth the
No, I don't think
money.
so. I don't think so. I think you're best to keep yours. I
Yeah,
mean, yours is only going to appreciate. I mean, that we all know how popular the 996 is becoming. The fact that 996 Carreras have become so popular because people can get into them, all the prices are going up. Everything at the top of that 996 generation is even looking even more special, from turbos up to GT3s to GT2s. I mean, GT2s still being very underpriced for what they are. I know they were hard to drive, but they're still very underpriced. So you've got a great 911. You really do. I don't think you need to change it. That's for sure.
Oh, something quite special is have to happen if I'm going to change it to something else, because it suits my life and my economy, and I don't think I will find such a good example of any GT3 of the older models. So
good point.
I think I really was lucky finding that car first try, and it's my first Porsche, so it's maybe my last one also.
That's good, John. I mean, it's a great story. I mean, you've made your way up. You've had that passion for cars. You've had that passion for driving on the track. You've honed those skills of driving on the track, and then you've ended up with the GT3, the 911, the 996, one of the pinnacles of the GT cars. I think you've done well. I mean, a really good story. Really, really nice to hear your story, and I think the listeners will be saying the same once this goes live. So what I was going to say is I always like to ask the question, because we've actually gone a little bit over today. I always like to keep these podcasts to about 1 hour. You and I have actually somehow, I've just looked at the timer, we've actually been talking for an hour and a half. So I told you. I hope all the listeners are still here, because I know that people have in their head 1 hour is like their maximum time they can listen. But it's a great story, and I'm sure they still are listening. But let's just go back to the favorite road thing, because I always like to ask this as an ending question, because when we can travel again and when we can go to Norway, or if it's somewhere near Norway, what is the road that you say to someone, if you've got a 911 or you've hired a 911 or you've got your sports car, what is the road in your region, or that you say you definitely have to drive a 911 on, or you have to drive your car on?
If you come to Norway, it's really one place you have to visit, and it's a long journey from where I'm living, but we did it 2 years ago in the M2, and that's going over the mountain to the western part of Norway, and driving the legendary roads of Trollstigen and Geiranger. And you start the trip coming over the mountain, and you go to 1,500 meters over sea level, and just driving turns the whole way down with amazing scenery. So
fantastic.
And that's also, I heard on another podcast, Road to Redline, Lee Sibley editor of Total 911, has made that trip before, and he also mentioned that's the one trip he can really think about doing again and want other people to also experience.
Great tip. Thanks, John. That's a great tip. So everyone remember that one. All right. Well, I think we're at the end. Once again, I really want to say thank you for coming on. And I also want to say thank you because, the listeners should know that John just joined PorscheCooled Exclusive as well. So he's supporting the podcast. So thank you for that, John. I really appreciate it.
You really deserve all the contribution we can give, because what you are doing to the Porsche community is quite special, and it's where I found you the first time, because right after I bought the car, I just were a period coming into podcasts, and I had a search on Spotify for 996 GT3, and one of your early episodes.
The first one where I was talking by myself, that probably would have been a very, very early one, was it? Yeah.
And that's how I found you the first time, and since I've been listening for all the episodes and the owner stories, and finally I had the courage to send you a message and asking to maybe attend myself. And
I'm glad you did. And this is what I always say to everyone. I know there's a lot of people who come on owner stories, and afterwards they say I was a little bit hesitant. I've had, I recorded someone the other day as well who they said they were really nervous afterwards. After I spoke to them, they said they're really nervous. And it's like, we all have this passion. It's easy just to come on the podcast and chat. You know what I mean? Like it's a great thing to come on and chat. And I always say, John, I never thought that owner stories would get so popular. And it's been great for me because I'm, talking to other owners and I'm learning things along the way. I'm finding out about other cars and other people's story. And I know the listeners love it. The listeners really love these stories. And I know they're going to really enjoy yours. I really do know they're going to enjoy yours. You've got a great 911, speed yellow, Steve's favorite color. I haven't always liked the yellow, but I can, when I see your car, it's just, it's fantastic. I mean, there's two speed yellow 911s that I really like at the moment, and it's yours. And there's another guy in Thailand that has a 911, I think it's just a Carrera with a roof box on the top, and he's got the black Sport Classic wheels, and it just looks, the speed yellow just looks fantastic in 996s and 997s. But I really appreciate you coming on, John. Like I said, we're recording this on a Sunday, so thanks for taking the time out on your Sunday afternoon and chatting with me. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Okay, thanks so much, John. All right, everyone, that was John coming in from Norway with his very, very beautiful 996.2 GT3 Speed Yellow. I'll put John's link to his Instagram in this podcast, so make sure you go over and say hello and follow him. And that's about it. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.